Welcome to the Executive America podcast, where we speak with the country's most influential industry leaders on the business and economic development issues taking place nationally. You can stay up to date with all of our content, including our publications, newsletters, and podcasts by visiting www.executiveamerica.com and clicking on subscribe.
Guy LePage is an executive director of Conico and is currently assisting with the management of the Greenland exploration activities, now in its second field season. He has 10 years of experience as a geologist and over 20 years experience as a resource analyst and corporate advisor with RM Capital Group. Guy, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Jesse. Pleasure to be here.
So there's been some exciting news related to Conico recently. Why don't you take us through this?
Well, as you mentioned in your introduction, this is our second field season, and we've been going for about 4 weeks on the ground in East Greenland and had some pretty exciting results. We've got 2 rigs on site and a team working off a ship not far from our project area. So a couple of good announcements and plenty of interest from the stock market, which is good.
Very good. And so what minerals are you primarily exploring for?
We've got 2 projects within the Ryberg license, which is where we're spending the entire field season. Mickey Fjord, we got some nickel, copper, platinum, palladium, gold and cobalt assays from the surface rock chipping that we're following up. And I suspect that's what we've been intersecting in the holes we've put down there so far. About 20 kilometres away at the Sorter Cap project, predominantly gold, nickel and copper by the look of it.
So give us the background on Conico for listeners who have no prior knowledge of the company.
Company was listed in 2006. It was a spin out from Tasman Resources Limited, which I'm also on the board of. It had a portfolio of exploration projects in South Australia. It then moved into cobalt and nickel, acquiring the cobalt nickel Mount Thirsty project, which we own 50% of with our joint venture partner, Barra Resources, situated about 20 kilometres out of Norseman in Western Australia. Had a pre-feasibility study completed beginning of last year. So we're currently reviewing that at the moment. More recently, in late 2020, we finished the acquisition of Longland Resources, which had title to the Ryberg project in Greenland, and then subsequently we picked up Mestersvig to the north, which is a sort of lead zinc play. So that's a bit of the recent background.
And you're already touching on this. Do you want to take us through your projects in a little bit more detail?
Sure, good idea. Mestersvig to the north, which we acquired earlier this year, that's a lead zinc historical mine called Blyclippen. Produced around 500,000 tonnes, 9% lead, 9% zinc back in the 50s and early 60s. Very large license area. It's quite near the Danish military base. Good access, port facilities, some accommodation. We had intended to go and do some work there this year, but ran out of time, unfortunately. Main focus this year is at Ryberg, where, as I mentioned earlier, we had got 2 prospects, Sorter Cap and Mickey. So Mickey's been the focus of about 8 holes so far, 7 of which have hit sulfides, anything from massive sulfide through to disseminated. So that's been pretty encouraging. We're continuing to drill along a 50-kilometre strike length. The other focus of our attention as of last week was the maiden drilling program at Sorter Cap. So we just finished our last hole, which we announced a few days ago, that got some very large widths of magnetite with disseminated sulfides in there, predominantly chalcopyrite and pyrrhotite, and also some semi-massive to net textured sulfides. So a bit hard to know what sort of grades we've got. We'll find out in October, November, but pretty exciting start.
And beyond October and November, do you want to take us through a little bit of your anticipated milestones for future growth?
Sure. Field season will wrap up in early October this year. Weather closes in, so that'll conclude a sort of just over 3-month drilling program. There'll be a lot of work coming up October through to May, not only planning an early entry back into Greenland in May, but also analysing all the assays that should be coming back in October through to December and January. So we'll be assaying for quite a large suite of metals. We know there's very large zones of mineralisation, so it's going to be pretty exciting to see all these assays come in. Not only exciting, but May will be upon us, and I think if the results come in well, we'll look at a expanded program well beyond what we did this year for the 2022 field season.
Fair enough. And for people that, again, are unfamiliar with Conico, do you want to just take us through a little bit of the executive team who's driving this?
Greg Solomon's chairman. He's been around public companies for over 40 years, and his brother Doug, both lawyers and both sort of founding directors of Conico back in 2006. Myself, geologist and stockbroker. You've already given me a generous introduction. Main driver of the project is Thomas Abraham James, who's was the founder of Longland Resources and a geologist. He's been based on site in Greenland managing this program. So he's been exceptionally busy managing people, rigs, food, logistics, with some help from our Icelandic friend Hoskador, who's also been a terrific help. So it's been a very, very busy 3 months, and looks set to continue for the next couple of months before we gear up for May 2022.
So before we finish off today, is there anything else that you haven't had a chance to address?
No, I think we've covered everything. It's big targets, big scale. Logistics are challenging, but I think the prize is pretty big. So first, detailed exploration program that's ever been undertaken in this part of Greenland. So we're all pretty excited to see what comes of it.
Excellent. Well, Guy, thanks very much for your time today.
Thanks, Jess, and thanks for having me on the program.
This has been a production of Executive America, a division of Romulus Rising Proprietary Limited. All rights reserved. You can stay up to date with Executive America, including our publications, newsletters, and podcasts by visiting www.executiveamerica.com and clicking on subscribe.